Hi there, it's Tracy from stepbysteppainting.net, and this acrylic painting tutorial is going to demonstrate how to paint a spring gnome with acrylics on an 11 by 14 inch canvas. I'm going to first go over the brushes that I used for this painting. I used a 3/4 inch flat wash brush. These are the Princeton Velvet Touch brushes, a number 4 round brush, and I used a number 8 round brush. Feel free to substitute brushes, whatever you have on hand. You don't have to use these exact brushes. I used the color green gray, and I will show you how to make this color if you don't want to buy this specific color. It's something that Liquitex BASICS makes, but it can be made. I used Unbleached Titanium, Pyrrole Red, Hooker's Green Hue Permanent, Turquoise. I also used Cad Yellow Light and Burnt Umber, Titanium White, and Mars Black. So quite a few colors for this. And again, feel free to sub the colors, whatever you have on hand that's similar to those colors. We're going to go ahead and start with the color green gray and titanium white. And we'll be using the 3/4 inch flat wash brush. So if you do have green gray, just go ahead and load it to your palette. If you don't have green gray, you can use any gray that you might have and add a little green to it. But I will also show you after I'm done painting this background. If you want to fast forward like a couple minutes, I will show you how to make this color. It's made by mixing ultramarine blue, yellow oxide, and titanium white together. So we're going to go ahead and just do a very simple sort of wash background. I like to do this with a lot of my paintings just to kind of fill up the canvas, fill up the background. And basically you're just doing up and down full width strokes with your 3/4 flat. It's relatively thin, so you can add a little bit of water to your brush. Just don't make it too much water, then it might be dripping and the consistency of the paint won't be as even throughout. You just want to go ahead and blend your green and white together. It makes a really pretty, very toned down, mellow, kind of greenish gray background. And it's about equal amounts of the white and green. We don't want it too dark because we want that gnome to really have a lot of contrast and stand out, especially since he's got a gray beard. So if you're using like black and white for this, you might want to make your background super light so your beard will stand out, or you might want to go the opposite way and kind of make it a little bit darker so that would stand out. So just continue to do all up and down strokes, fill up your entire canvas. Okay, as promised, I was going to show you how to make green gray. So if you look on the back of this artist's acrylic, you'll see like these letter and number things. So it says PY42, PB29, and PW6. PW6 is titanium white. PY42 is, I believe, ultramarine blue. And actually PP29 is ultramarine blue and PY42 is the yellow oxide. So that tells you what colors are used to make that specific color that Liquitex Basics is selling. So if you have like that big kit of Liquitex, you likely will have ultramarine blue and yellow oxide and titanium white. So mix those three together, and I'm demonstrating that on the palette. You'll definitely need a lot more titanium white because it's a gray color. There's no black on it in it, but it is a very light kind of pastel-y color. So you'll need a lot of white, and then just kind of slowly introduce your yellow and blue. I'd say it's about equal yellow and blue, maybe just a teeny bit more yellow oxide than the blue. And then that will give you the exact green-gray color. So you can pre-mix that if you really like that green-gray and you don't want to go buy green-gray, that's how you make it. So next we're going to draw our gnome and swing and branch on our canvas. So the composition of our painting. If you want to, you can use the template for this and print it out and trace that onto the canvas. So I'm going to start, my painting is dry by the way. We're going to start by drawing the nose. So the nose is exactly 1.5 inches wide by like maybe 1 inch high. It's right in the center of the canvas, so locate the center of the canvas and draw your oval nose. And then draw the bottom of the hat so that it kind of hugs the top of the nose. So this is where that hat kind of dips down on the left and the right. And then we want to kind of slowly sketch our hat. So he's got that very long pointy hat, but it curves down. So we're going to go up about 5 inches. You don't have to do this exact with the exact measurements I'm throwing out there. That's just giving you some estimates. You want to make sure you leave a gap on your canvas. You need at least 2 inches of space on the above his hat because we have that tree branch that our swing is tied to. So you want to just kind of gently sketch it up, and then it curves down and kind of goes to a point, kind of sways to the right. And then you see me sketching his beard. So we don't have to be super detailed with this beard right now. We just draw a simple shape. So kind of a curved line on both sides. Both sides start below the hat. So where the end point of the hat is kind of where the beard starts on each side. It kind of curves down and kind of sways to the right. We can sketch this branch as well. So it starts out a little bit thicker. It's probably about 1 inch thick at the top, and then it curves and goes to a point on the right. Make sure there's kind of enough space under his hat, the top of his hat, where that branch is. And then, so before I started drawing the rest of his body, I wanted to get this swing in, so make it so he's going to be sitting on this swing. So I used a T-square to help with these vertical lines. So I lined up the T-square to the edge of the canvas, and I did 2 vertical lines on each side of the gnome. Leave a little bit of a gap, kind of where his beard, the outside of his beard is, so that there's enough room for his hand to be holding onto those strings. And then you can just kind of gently draw this like curved line that overlaps your branch, so it makes it look like those ropes are kind of tied around the branch. And then I drew his feet. So before I did the swing part, I drew his feet in. So kind of these 2 kidney bean shape feet, the exact same size of his nose. So if you kind of look at the size of his nose, that's about how big the feet, at least in my gnome drawing, that's how it ended up. And then we can be just kind of very loose with the rest. So the beard is going to be kind of covering his legs. So we just do these like diagonal lines that kind of go up and attach to the beard area. And then we can sketch his hands. So he's got mitten hands, and the little thumbs are pointing up, and then the other part of the hand is downwards. So we make that piece overlap our rope piece. This one on the right I had kind of difficulties with at first. That's, you see me kind of erasing it multiple times to get it right. But thumb is up, the other part of the hand is below, and it's overlapping the vertical part of the string. And then we still see his arm, his sleeve, so that's going kind of diagonally down and attaching to the mitten hand. And then we can sketch the swing, so it's kind of a three-dimensional shape. So the bottom piece is kind of a thin, wide rectangle, and then the sides kind of go diagonally, and then he's sitting on the swing. The width of my swing is approximately 6.5 inches wide. So if you want to use that measurement, 6.5 inches wide, and that bottom rectangle piece, the front part of the swing is like 1/2 inch high. I drew 2 holes on each side of the swing, so that's where that rope is going through. So make sure that lines up with your vertical line for the rope. And then there's going to be kind of these tasseled pieces coming down from the swing, and we could either draw those or paint those in. Attempt to fix this hand again. And I always say this, but we can always adjust our drawing as we're painting it in. If your drawing does not look perfect, or if it's too sketchy, that's okay. The painting part will help us kind of adjust it. I'm going to do these branches up here, so we have kind of this branch piece sticking down that branches off into 3 different spots with leaves at the end. Yours might be different depending on the placement of your branch, so your branches might be going in a different direction. And then there's a ladybug, and your ladybug placement might be different too, depending on where you have an opening in your branch area. But there's a spot right here. Simple ladybug design, like an oval half circle shape with the circle head and the spots. I'm not going to draw the flowers of the bee or all those other details, so I have enough to go off of so I can start doing this painting. I am going to first paint his nose. So for the nose, I use the color Unbleached Titanium and Burnt Umber, and I'll use a little bit of titanium white in it as well. This is the number 4 round brush. And I'm going to first paint a layer of unbleached titanium. So I'm going to paint the entire oval that color. Then before this dries, I'm going to mix a little bit of that brown with my unbleached titanium, and it's going to blend right on the canvas, but just on the outer part of that oval. I'm doing that brown, but not blending it all the way, just so the outer part of the edge of the oval is a little bit darker. Then I'm gonna rinse to get the brown and the beige off. Grab a little bit of titanium white, and then do this like highlight on the upper left part of the nose. So there is my nose with some various different colors on it. And then without rinsing the brush, I'm just going to go ahead and grab my titanium white. I'm going to start filling this beard in. So the beard was done with multiple layers. And you can simplify this beard if you find the texture, the detailed texture of it too intimidating. We can start simple. We don't have to make it look too complex. I'm going to add some Mars Black on my palette as well, because black and white were utilized to do this beard. So I'm going to do like this gray color. So I mixed black and white together to make this kind of medium gray color. And I'm just going to kind of go around the bottom part of the nose. So that part is outlined. But my strokes need to be going in these like curved directions, and that kind of helps you create that texture. So down here they're more kind of vertical, and then on the side they're going in a curved direction. They're all kind of contouring, going in the direction of the hair stroke. So right here, and as I go to reload my brush, I'm loading different amounts of white and gray onto my brush, filling in this shape. So these strokes on the outer parts are kind of longer and more curved outwards. So long curved strokes, and then our beard kind of swoops down and kind of gathers to a point at the bottom. I'm going to switch to my number 8 round brush. It has larger bristles and can cover more space than that 4 round, so I'm going to use that. Adding a little bit of water to my gray just to get this to spread fast. Right now I just want to fill up this shape, and when this dries I can go back and add more texture to it, but I want to get this shape really defined here. So it goes down and it goes to a point at the bottom, kind of the point kind of sways to the right, getting that all filled in. You don't want any of the background colors showing through, so nice and solid. And we already have some texture in there because of the color variation of the gray and the white, but it's not detailed texture yet. So we have that shape filled in, and we're going to let that dry before we go back and add more detail to it. So next, let's go ahead and do the hat. And I did turquoise blue for the hat. If you want to change the color of the hat, you're welcome to. And then back to that number 4 round brush. So this is basically just filling in that shape that we drew in. So I start at the bottom, so we have that curved piece that goes over the nose and it points down to the sides of the beard. And then just kind of loosely paint the outer edge of the hat to really define that shape. So that part on the left is going to point downwards. And then I'm just kind of slowly, gradually painting that in to get that shape defined. So I'm just doing the outer edges of that hat first. Notice how I'm not following my drawing. I'm kind of adjusting it as I go. That's okay. That's just something that I often do. If you want to follow your drawing exactly, or if you used the template and you feel more comfortable following that exactly, that's fine too. So this hat curves down, kind of goes to a point, flops over. So when we are ready to start filling this in, we want to do strokes that are going in kind of a curved direction. So across the hat, but curved. So this whole way down, we're doing curved strokes. Right here, so curved. This right here goes curved and goes all the way up and fills the rest of that hat in a curved direction. That'll give you some form in the hat, even though it's a solid color and we're not blending any colors right now. Speaking of blending, so let's go ahead and highlight this before it dries. So if you add a little bit of titanium white, you might want to wipe the brush off, but you don't really need to rinse it. So if your brush is saturated with too much turquoise, this might not work, but just very gently add some titanium white in there, also going in a curved direction. So that's going to highlight your hat, give it some form to kind of make it look 3D. So up here, and then kind of right here as well. That white is going to blend very fast in with that turquoise. And then I'm going to do some shadowing. So rinse your brush off. I'm going to mix a very, very tiny amount of black into that turquoise. to shade it. So we want to make a shade of turquoise by mixing black into it, but you don't want a lot of black, just a little tiny bit just to make it a couple shades darker. And that is going to help us do some of the shadowing in the hat. So on the very bottom, so this line that is on the bottom and goes right over that nose, so that's going to be that dark shade of turquoise, and just kind of gently blend it back up so that part is slightly darker. Blend that up. And then our hat here, so on the far right here, we're going to make kind of a line that overlaps up. So it's going to make it look like that piece is folded backwards. So make a line just on that right part, and it overlaps just slightly above the part that folds down. So that's it for that shading of the hat. I didn't do a lot of detail on the hat because there's going to be a vine and daisy around it, so that'll be enough detail for us. We're going to move along to the shoes. So for the shoes, I used Mars Black and Burnt Umber. So you want to mix a little bit of black into your brown. It's going to make a very, very dark brown. It's almost going to look black, basically. And we're going to paint the bottom of both of his shoes. So just kind of outline your shape and then fill it in solid. Again, if you need to adjust this so it's different from what you drew, that's fine. And then we're going to do the sides of the shoes. So don't rinse your brush, just add a little bit of white to that black and brown combination on your brush. It's going to make kind of a brownish gray color. And then on the side, so the inner side of that, we're just going to kind of like use our bristles to create that 3D side of the shoe. Just kind of contours around that shape and just that side. So not on both sides, just on the inner parts of it. That's going to create that part of the shoe. The pants are brown. So this gets kind of tricky because our swing is brown and pants are brown. So we still want to kind of create contrast with this. If you want to change the color of the pants to make it easy, you're welcome to do that. But I chose brown. And it's just the burnt umber mixed with a little bit of the beige color. That will lighten your brown. If you want to just use solid burnt umber, you're welcome to do that as well. But I'm just kind of doing the pants. So this is going to be very kind of, we're going to need to paint our beard layer again so that a lot of that overlaps the pants area. But for now, we're just going to simplify this, and I'm going to make it look like he's sitting on the swing, but a lot of that beard is just covering his leg area. So two kind of diagonal rectangle shapes. And then we can do his arm and mitten next. So I found it easy to paint the mitten hands first and then the sleeve. So if you want to do it the opposite way, you're welcome to do that. So the mittens are black. I'm just using Mars Black to paint that thumb and that kind of oval shape below it. And if we want to be kind of creative and add some highlight to that, we can before that dries. So just grab a little bit of titanium white, and I just kind of did the top part, just kind of blended it down. It makes only kind of a subtle difference versus if it was just solid black. So now it's kind of a gray mitten. And then we'll do the other one opposite. So that thumb shape and that little oval shape. And then if we want to highlight that, we can. A little bit of titanium white. That top part. Just kind of blending it in. And then I'm going to do the ropes. So I'm going to rinse and grab just the burnt umber for now. Make sure that paint is just on the tip of the brush. We're going to do a vertical line. It's going to skip the hand, so it's going to make it look like that hand is overlapping that rope piece. So we're going to go all the way up. This is just a straight line right now. We'll add some texture to it later. But just a straight, continuous line that goes up to our branch. And then we can do the little curve piece. Added a little bit of that unbleached titanium color in there. So then this piece, vertical line, goes down to his hand, down to the swing area. And then if we want to add texture to the rope, rinsed and grabbed unbleached titanium mixed with a little bit of titanium white, so it's going to make kind of a light beige color. But then I'm going to take this and do these kind of wavy strokes that weave around our vertical line. So just like a long continuous wavy line that overlaps our vertical line, and that'll start creating that texture in our rope. And then we can go ahead and paint his sleeve in. So burnt umber, and then it's just a diagonal sort of rectangle shape that attaches from the beard to the mitten piece. And then same thing on the other side. So next, let's rinse, and I'm gonna make sure that thumb is really overlapping there. I'm going to show you how to do more texture in the beard. So if this looks a little bit advanced and intimidating, you can skip this step and just kind of leave the beard simplified, or if you don't like the way it looks, you can still leave the beard simplified. I'm just going to start with Mars Black on the tip of my number 4 round brush. I'm going to start below the nose. I'm doing little tiny hair marks just under that nose. Gives it kind of more shadowy look right under the nose. And then we're just going to utilize black and white. I'm going to add more white to my palette here. So I have white and black loaded on my brush, and I'm just going to go and work my way down, doing these textured kind of curved strokes. So this is lighter than our first layer. First layer is kind of a medium gray color. So this white is showing up now, and it's that gray is showing through what I'm painting. So that gray below in that first layer is helping to create that textured, different kind of layered colors, different salt and pepper colors in that beard. I'm just going back, curved, kind of short strokes. Pay attention to like the edge of the beard. So we have pieces that are just kind of hanging out on the side, kind of going off the side of the beard. That helps create that texture. I want to make it kind of go in the direction. So in the middle, the strokes are going more vertical, but on the side, they're curving the opposite direction from each other. And then we have pieces that are overlapping the pants area. We have the tip of the beard is kind of curving and pointing to the right. So I'm just layering all the little textured pieces on by using mostly white because it's brighter than that first layer, but also using some of that black as well to create some darker strands. So that's it for our beard texture. I'm gonna go and get our mitten here. So with the white, I'm just kind of loosely outlining the inner part so that it stands out a little bit better since it's so dark in that area. And then the bottom part of his shoes, so we have the heel part of his boot, using that titanium white just very, very lightly. It's more of a gray than bright titanium white, because if you used pure titanium white, it would be too bright. So kind of do a gray color and just kind of dry brush these little vertical marks on the top part of his shoe. We can kind of loosely outline the top part of his shoe, but we're not going to do much more detail to the bottom part of his boot than that. Next, we're going to paint the swing in. So this gets kind of tricky because the swing wood piece is almost the same color as his pants, and we want to create enough contrast so it stands out. So to kind of combat that, I added some yellow into my brown to make it more of a yellowish brown color instead of just kind of the burnt umber color of his pants. So that is helpful in getting that color to stand out. So I have burnt umber mixed with some of that beige color, so it's that light color, the same color of his pants, but adding yellow into it to create more of a yellowish wood color. So we want to do this in horizontal strokes. So our wood grain is going horizontally, and we're just filling it in little bits at a time. It's helpful to use a ruler here to get that part to be nice and straight. So right here, you can kind of outline that horizontal piece and just fill it in short horizontal strokes. Just be really careful when you need to go around the shoe and around the pants and the beard area. This part is diagonal, and then right here, horizontal strokes. We can utilize the white. So see right here, I added some white in there, so that's kind of lighter. That's enough contrast against his shoe, so that stands out nicely. Using that white and the yellow is going to make that brown lighter so it stands out. So right here is where it gets tricky, because this would be shadowy right here. That's where he's sitting. And let's utilize some of that black to kind of make it darker than the pants. So this is shadowy. Black will help make it shades darker than the pants so that it stands out. And we can always outline the pant area later to help that stand out better. But that part I used black to make it more shadowy. Just take your time, little horizontal strokes at a time. And then our rectangle piece at the bottom is going to be darker than that top wood piece. So use that black to kind of create that wood grain. Not over blending the colors. So using that black but not over blending it, that's going to create that kind of that grain faux wood look. This triangular piece right here is darker. So I'm going to use brown and a little bit of black so that it has it's a lot darker than the top part of the wood. So that is painted also with horizontal strokes. So we can just paint that entire rectangular piece going all the way across. If you need to use your ruler to help get that bottom line to be straight, you're welcome to do that. And it's just a solid dark brown, thick line across. A little bit of black towards the bottom. Using a little bit of water on your brush helps kind of get it to flow to help you control those small areas, but just try not to, if you're working on an easel, that might be a problem and it might start dripping down if you add too much water to the brush. So just be careful with that. And then we can paint the two holes that our rope is going through. So we have a hole right here and a hole over here on the right. And then if we need to paint that rope again over those black little oval lines that we just did, we can do that. Then I kind of outline the sides of the swing with the black to really get that shape in. So this side right here is outlined, this back line is outlined, so that diagonal line, and there's a little bit of a line. If you can see that horizontal line in the back of his shoes, you can outline that as well. Mine, you can really see it. And then this part right here, we can outline loosely with white, so that helps that part stand out a little bit better. So that's the titanium white right there. And then we have the parts of the ropes, that end part of the rope. I'm just using all sorts of colors here, white, brown, black. We can use yellow if we want, but that just a few little kind of diagonal lines hanging down under the swing to make it look like that rope is going through those holes, somehow tied in a knot to hold the swing. And then you'll likely need to do this too, but I'm going to go back and touch up the tip of his beard. So we painted the swing in and we might have accidentally painted over parts of the beard, and that's fine. I can just go back in with white and possibly black and just go back and redo the texture of the beard down here, especially to make it look like it's overlapping our swing. Kind of adjust that color using a little bit of gray in there. And it's so tempting to go back and just add more texture on the beard, but we want to just pay attention to that bottom part. And then I'm utilizing this titanium white to kind of add more pieces to that part of the rope. But right here, little tiny horizontal lines for some of that wood grain. Very, very subtle. You don't have to do too much because that part still needs to be relatively dark. And then I mentioned this earlier, if you need to outline the bottom part of his pants to help you with that contrast, we can take the black and just outline the pants, the bottom part. If we need to outline more of the shoe to help create some contrast, this is just solid Mars black, still using the 4 round brush and just kind of loosely outlining that. So it helped it to stand out a lot better. So we're done with the gnome. We're not going to touch this anymore. It's great. We're going to leave it like that. No more detail on our gnome except for doing the flower thing later on his hat. I'm going to move along to the branch here. So this is the number 8 round brush, and we already drew our branch in, so we kind of know where we're going with this. But the branch is Mars black and burnt umber. If you want to just do it solid black, you can, or just solid brown, but that branch is relatively dark. And so it's very thin and goes to a point on the right, but then it gets relatively thicker to about 1 inch thick on the left. And you want to kind of go around, if you already painted the part of the rope that overlaps the branch, you want to kind of go around it. If you want to paint over it, you can, and then just redo that rope part later. You're welcome to do it that way as well. But just painting that piece in, solid. We're not doing detailed texture on the branch. If you want to do detailed texture, you can, but we're leaving that branch as simple as possible. And then our branch goes off into two smaller branches. So I did the two smaller branches. They start out thick and then go to a little point, and then down here, the three little stems that are going to be attached to our leaves. Those are very thin lines. Next, we can start painting these leaves, and I'm going to load my palette with the color Hooker's Green Hue Permanent, and I will use the 8 round brush. We can mix some of this yellow into it. That's that cad yellow light color, just to kind of make that green a little bit lighter, and kind of blend the green and yellow on the canvas to get that color variation. I'm just painting 3 simple leaves that are attached to each of those stems. And then we have a leaf up here that kind of goes off the edge of the canvas. And we could do another leaf right here. Next, I'm going to do that vine piece that kind of wraps around his hat. So I'm going to use still using the 8 round brush, but you can use the 4 round for this if you want. Just using that green. If this isn't showing up, you could make your green slightly darker by adding a little bit of black to it, or slightly lighter by adding a little bit of white to it. So it just wraps around the hat. So we do like a little curved line. It overlaps the hat, and then it gets to the edge, and then we pick it up to make it look like it's going behind and twisting behind. And then it just kind of ends there. And then we can do little leaves on our vine. So I'm just doing simple leaf shapes, using the white to lighten that green. That's going to let some of these leaves, because the green is almost the same kind of darkness as our turquoise. So adding white in there is going to help it stand out a little bit better. And then make sure you leave an area for your flower. So simple leaves. You can do as many leaves as you want. So next I'm going to start painting these daisies. There's 3 large daisies, and then there's 1 daisy on his hat. So I started with our centerpiece, and that's the cad yellow light, and this is a number 4 round brush. So I'm painting 3 oval shapes for the center. Actually, these 2 right here, this lower one and the one on the left, are a circle shape, and the one that's up high on the right, that's more of a semicircle oval shape, because that daisy is going to be kind of from a side view. Then you want to go ahead and rinse all that yellow off the brush and dry it, and we want to use just the titanium white, and then we're going to do each of the petals. So this one right here is the side view one. So for the petals, we're only doing petals on the bottom and not on the top. So our petals can start at the center part, the yellow piece, and then you just kind of create a petal shape that kind of curves at an angle downwards. So I'm just starting there. It's almost like I'm doing it in one stroke, but it ends up being several strokes. So you just kind of start, and then you press down harder on your bristles to create that thicker petal shape stroke. And then the other 2 daisies, same thing, but we're doing petals that go all the way around the circle. So our petal shape is narrow at the base, and then it gets a little bit thicker at the end. So these petals right here at the top, they're kind of shorter. They're not as long as the petals that are on the bottom. It's just kind of the angle that this flower is at. So these ones down here are a little bit longer, and they also curve. So this one curves down. And then we can do this one, start at the base, a little bit narrow, and then it gets thicker. So these petals up here, because of the angle that the flower is at, those petals are shorter. We don't see the full petal, but down here we see the full petal, so they're longer. So you can kind of outline the shape of the petal first and then fill it in solid. Then I'm going to add some brown to our center part of the flower. So I'm going to rinse and dry and grab the burnt umber just on the tip of the brush, and then I'm going to stipple. So that means I'm just making little tiny dots on the outer edge of our circle, and then I can add some more yellow to help it blend. So this one too, just on the bottom part, and then grab some yellow and stipple that too to kind of blend it in. So that makes the outer part of our circle a little bit darker, the part that's closest to the petals a little bit darker, center part is lighter. So I'm just stippling it, dotting it, and that's creating that kind of the center texture part of our flower. And if you want to go in and detail your flowers even further, add some shading to the petals, you can, but really we're going to just kind of keep that simple. And then we can do our stem. So the stem, I can utilize our yellow and green combination. And if you want to use just green and not the yellow, that's fine too. So you're just starting at the bottom edge of your canvas, and then you're just going up and having that stem meet where the daisy is. Same thing, so you're just going to have to figure out where that stem is going. It's not completely vertical. The stems are kind of swaying, kind of curving a little bit. And then we can add some grass to this area, or leaves. So for the leaves of these daisies, we can kind of press hard on our brush at first and then make it go to a point to create some thicker grass blades that look like the leaves of the flower. And you can add some white and yellow in that to kind of vary those colors. And then to do the grass, we can just utilize the same colors, the green, white, and yellow combination. And we're just doing little tiny lines. We don't have to make these super high, especially since we have that swing there. We don't want it to be too busy in that area. Just a few strokes for grass blades, very, very thin lines. So we create color variation in that grass by using different variations of our green, yellow. We can even add some white in there as well. Just a few grass blades kind of going at different angles, but again, we don't want that to be too busy down there, so I didn't make the grass too high. We can also do the flower daisy on his hat, so we can kind of repeat that technique. So for this one, I added white, or I mixed white into the yellow just to make sure that this is going to show up nice and opaque, because it's a dark area that it's going over. The yellow tends to be kind of a translucent color, but mixing white into it will make it more opaque. And then we can do our petals. So I did the yellow circle, and then the petals. This daisy is slightly smaller than the other daisies. And then we can add our little brown dots on the outer edge of that circle. Gives that center part a little bit more contrast. And next I'm going to paint the ladybug. So this is the only time this red shows up in this painting. So this is Pyrrole Red. You can use any red that you have available. It doesn't have to be this one. I like this one because it's always so bright and opaque. It has really good coverage. So I don't have to do multiple coats for it. So I did the body part, which is kind of like a semicircle with the corners kind of curved. Fast forward to letting it dry. I guess you can do the head before the red dries. You can use Mars Black, do like a little circle for the head. But before you do the dots, you're going to want to make sure that red dries. And then we can do the little antennae. Super simplistic. It doesn't have to be a realistic looking ladybug. And then when the red dries, you can do your spots. Also Mars Black. So I did 3 little circles for the spots. I added 2 little dots at the end of the antennae, and then his little legs. We may not see all the legs, but you can do 6 of them. And then when that dries, you can take your titanium white and do a little highlight on the upper left area of the ladybug's body. And I did 2 white dots for the eyes. And then for the bee. So the bee, I used Cad Yellow Light and Titanium White. And then we'll need Mars Black for his stripes. And so I did my first layer of the body with the Titanium White so that yellow will show up nice and bright. I suppose the background is light enough to where we don't need to do this white layer first, but that's kind of up to you if you want to do the white first and then let that dry and then do the yellow, or just go ahead and do it yellow. So the body is kind of like an elliptical pointed oval shape, and then the head is a circle. So I'm going to kind of emphasize this a little bit wider, and then the bottom part a little bit more pointier. And then you want to let that dry. So when that dries, you want to go ahead and repaint that with the yellow. So that will show up nice and bright because our first layer is white. So there's our yellow layer. So painting over the exact same thing that I just painted. We can do the head too, even though the head is going to be black, but that's fine. And then you want to let that dry. So when that dries, you want to go ahead and do your black stripes. So I tried to be a little bit more detailed with this bee. If you don't want to be this detailed, that's fine. You don't have to. But I decided to do my stripes kind of more like furry stripes, but still going in that curved direction. So you can paint like a curve and then kind of fill it in with little short vertical strokes to kind of make him look fuzzy. And then his little stinger. So I did 1 stripe and the stinger and then another stripe. Kind of the same thing. Did little vertical lines going in that curved direction. And we can do a 3rd stripe up here. And then we can do his head. So I was debating whether to leave his head like half yellow, half black. So it can go like that with the antenna. Or we can just paint the whole circle area black. And then for the wings, you want to go ahead and make sure all of that is dry before doing the wings. So I used titanium white for the wings, and they're kind of closer to the head area. So I did a kind of almost like a heart shape, like a very narrow heart in the upper part of the body, and then they curve outwards. Both of them are kind of a mirror image of each other. So imagine these like two narrow hearts that are just kind of curving upwards towards the top part of the body. And so the wings, I did not make them super, super opaque, solid white, like the petals of the flower. We're not applying that much white paint. We're almost dry brushing this. So only a teeny tiny bit of white on your brush and just barely fill it in to where that white looks very thin and we can see some of that color from the background showing through. So not super opaque like our petals. And then we don't need to wait for this to dry to do this step, especially since we're not applying a lot of white paint in that area anyway, so it should dry very fast. But just loosely with the black, very, very thinly. You don't want a thick black line here at all. Just kind of outline the bottom part of the wing. And then I did a little bit of like texture on there, so like a few diagonal lines on the wing. And then I love doing the little trails for these bees. You don't have to do that step if you don't like that, but little dash marks for the path that the bee is flying. You can make those a little bit more defined. So this is also that Mars black color. Then the last final touch-up that I decided to do was go in and kind of add to this rope. So this is the unbleached titanium. I'm adding this layer here to make it stand out a little bit better. You could even go back in with a darker layer to make that darker, depending on if you want to create more contrast in that area. And then right here as well, making kind of a curve that's going in the opposite direction. It gives it that braided look. You can do it over here too. So another curve going in the opposite direction. It's going to make it look like that rope is braided, and it can, if you want to, you can add more brown to it as well. But that is it. This is the conclusion of how to paint a spring gnome on a swing. Hope you enjoyed this painting. Thanks for watching, and thanks for painting with me.